Good morning, Tomas. Namaste. Mariana. Hello, dear. Uma, good morning. Namaste. Hyma, namaste, dear. Hello, Hyma.
Hello, Brother Shankara.
Namaste, dear.
Namaste, Brother Shankara. This might be my last day. AT&T disconnected.
Oh.
Yes, from Atlanta. It's last day.
Yeah, then you'll be seeing us from Denver.
Denver. I may not be coming on Tuesday and Wednesday because I already lost internet and I'm connecting through cell phone right now, trying to connect to you so I could listen to. I never did that on cell phone before.
Well,
this is
you
my
did
new.
it just fine because there you are.
Yeah, if it does, I may be able to connect on Tuesday night because I'm living with my neighbor. Tomorrow, my stuff will be moved to Denver.
Oh my!
So, and then I'll be leaving Wednesday morning.
Wow.
Good morning, Rita.
Good morning, Brother Shankara.
So glad you're going to sing. Let me just tell you the order of events. I will start with the 3 ohms, then do the announcements, then do the opening chant, then I'll ask you to sing, please.
Okay.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you. Let me get my book. And
Okay, please do.
yeah.
Good morning, Sridhar. Namaste.
Good morning.
Robert. Hello there, Robert. Namaste.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, there's Girish and Sujata.
Yeah, good morning, Brother Shankara.
Good morning. Namaste.
Namaste.
So because we have a lot to cover, we're going to start spot on 11 a.m., just a couple of minutes from now.
Brother, will there be time for a couple of minutes to introduce the purpose of the song? In honor of Swami Yogeshananda?
Please do keep it as short as possible, dear. There's a lot to cover this morning.
Yeah,
I know
sure.
the song is a long one.
No, it's very short, only 2 verses.
Oh, really? I thought it was longer.
No.
Okay, well, yeah, say a few words about that then.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Maj, thank you for the article. I'm going to look at it today. And yeah. And Brother Shankara has already accepted that we'll upload it on the website.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It needs some modifications.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll edit it and then I'll send it to Cyndi along with Umaji's prayer.
Okay,
So those things will be on the website.
thank you.
The chant will be offered after the announcements, and then we'll have a song from Rita. Announcements. Your Vedanta Center will be closed to visitors and regular classes and talks suspended for the month of August. There are some exceptions. Evening arati will be performed at sundown daily, except Sundays. At sundown. If you want to join me, come at sundown. Find out what it is and join me then. The chapel will be open during the day for private meditation. Please observe common hand washing, sanitizing, and physical distance guidelines should you visit the chapel. First and second Saturday Chandi readings will be done online in August as usual. Today's talk will be the last talk until September 6th. There will be Tuesday and Wednesday evening classes next week online as usual, and they'll begin again in September. Thursday's e-newsletter is the last one you'll receive, barring urgent news that can't wait, until the last week of August. And if you want to know what's happening in September, the September calendar is being posted on the website. So if you want to know what's going to happen in September, that's already been established. And so we will be, that's on the website, or will be on the website this coming week, I'm sorry. For you who'd like to stay connected during our summer break, a 5-week Monday evening peer-led reading and discussion group starts Monday, August 3rd at 8 p.m. on Zoom. The text we'll be dealing with is Love Poems from God. I'll repeat that. Love Poems from God by Daniel Ladinsky. It's the translation and interpretation of the testimony of 12 saints from the Far East, the Middle East, the Near East, and Europe over a couple of millennia. Truly a remarkable book. Love Poems from God by Daniel Ladinsky, Ladinsky. Okay, so now our opening chant. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all joyous and suffering beings everywhere. That is, of course, the wonderful translation of an ancient prayer by Swami Yogeshananda. And now Rita Mathew will have a few more words to say about Swami Yogeshananda, and she will offer us a song. Rita, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. I've selected this song, Teach Me Kingdom Ways, which I learned at the London Mennonite Center in 1978, where I lived for 5 years in the community. So Mennonite community is basically, in Vedantic terms, a Jnani community, because they recognize the divinity of all and inclusion and blurring the lines of self and other. And their emphasis on service. But why the Mennonite community I want to mention is because it respects and honors our Swami Yogeshananda's roots in the Quaker movement and in his theology of pacifism. The third point is that he was at Shepherd's Hill, where the Mennonite Center was, and I lived there for 5 years in his footsteps, physically walking in his footsteps, and didn't find that out until I met him last year. So it's an amazing, amazing discovery. So I'm really excited to sing this song for him. It's Teach Me Kingdom Ways. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. Glory, glory, till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. In a world of chains, teach me how to be free. In a world of masks, teach me how to be me. Let me walk in peace in a world where there's none. Teach me how to be thankful when each day is done. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. Glory, glory, till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. In a world of sin, teach me how to be pure. In a world of doubts, teach me how to be sure. Let me walk in power in a world that is weak. Teach me how to be loving in the words I speak. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee. Teach me kingdom ways so that I may walk with thee till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. Glory, glory, till I stand before your throne, precious Lord. Shanti, Shanti.
Amen. Thank you, Rita. Please email the lyrics to me so that I can forward them to Cyndi with a little note about the song and what you said. And again, thank you. A beautiful song. And as you said, it can easily be thought of as a Jnani's perspective. This morning's topic is a Jnana yogi's response to transformation. Right now, as we gather this morning, each of us on this planet on which we live, each of us, the planet on which we live, perhaps even the universe itself, appear to be involved in a major transformation. Universe is mentioned because, as Swami Vivekananda told us, the macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. So from the tiniest subtle particle to the infinite and eternal Jagat. Everything must be taking part in this change. Very little is as disturbing to us as great change in our lives. Isn't it so? Yet, as all the great teachers and saints tell us, how each of us responds to what is happening now will make a tremendous difference in what happens next. Will we react from fear and uncertainty, or will we act calmly and constructively from an inner confidence born of spiritual practice and satyagraha, insistence on truth? Disturbingly, we cannot see far ahead. We may get some help from our experts, healthcare scientists, economists, political leaders, but they rely mainly on precedents, and there's very little meaningful precedent for what's happening now. So they offer their best science, educated guesses, and sometimes conflicting day-to-day guidance. Oy vey es mir, oh woe is me, is indeed a natural, heartfelt response. Fortunately, as spiritual aspirants, we have a powerful alternative, the 4 yogas as taught to us by Swami Vivekananda Swamiji. Excuse me, I'm having some trouble here.
I just wanted to ask everybody to please mute their mics. There are a lot of mics open and there's some background music coming through. If you could please mute your microphone. Thanks.
Excuse me, I'm having some difficulty with the file on my screen. I'll be back to you in just a moment. I don't know what the difficulty is. I'm going to have to quit this and then start it again. Okay, that worked. Fortunately, as spiritual aspirants, we have a powerful alternative, the 4 yogas as taught to us by Swami Vivekananda Swamiji. Over the past 3 months, we thought about how a bhakti yogi, a karma yogi, or a raja yogi might act during such a change. Now we'll take up Jnana Yoga. We'll see what guidance this yoga offers about how to live calmly and constructively during a great wave of transformation. Please understand, what I'm about to say is not meant as personal instruction. It is not ultimate truth or any kind of dogma which you are expected to adopt or follow. It is a review of the principles and practices of Jnana Yoga as they could apply to an ideal yogi who finds herself in the current situation. Please take from it what you find useful. July has been a month for the study of Jnana Yoga, Advaita Vedanta. As a Jnana yogi, you practice discrimination, reason, detachment, and satyagraha, insistence on truth. The goal is freedom from limitation, moksha. Our teachers say that all miseries in life are caused by seeing inaccurately. An earnest and persistent jnani may break through this misapprehension, maya, and see only the divine presence, Brahman, everywhere in everything and everyone. The Chandogya Upanishad tells us the nature of maya and our relationship to it. This is from Uddalaka's discourse to his son. In the beginning, there was existence alone, one only without a second. He, the one, thought to himself, let me be many, let me grow forth. Thus, out of himself, he projected the universe. And having projected out of himself the universe, he entered into every being and everything. All that is has itself in him alone. He is the truth. He is the subtle essence of all. He is the self. And that, my son, that art thou, Tat Twam Asi. That's from Swami Prabhavananda's translation of the Upanishads, The Breath of the Eternal. Yet, sage Vasishta, who was Lord Rama's teacher, tells Rama, "O my dear child, how strange is this world bewitching Maya. Being deluded by this Maya, one cannot know the self. Through the self, though the self has pervaded all through the limbs of the body." And he also says, as a stage set, or as the mirage water in the desert are not true, in the similar manner, this observable universe is not true. The ideal Jnana yogi is not daunted by Vasishta's teaching. It is her unbending intent to dispel Maya's delusion, to realize the great truth left to us by sage Uddalaka, to actually become that which is beyond all name and form. But right now, upheaval and danger affect practically every aspect of our daily lives. How does the Jnana yogi respond to this? That's what we will explore. How might an ideal Jnana yogi be in the presence of what we're facing? There can be no doubt in any of our minds that there is great upheaval and danger in our lives. We have to be more careful than we've been. We have to be more thoughtful than we've been. There are many ways to respond to this. We're going to take up what Jnana Yoga says about it. Now, as you know, the Jnana Yoga that we teach is the Jnana Yoga of Swami Vivekananda. It's based primarily on the lectures that he gave in London in 1895 that are collected together as the book or gathering of talks under the title Jnana Yoga. So what we'll say next about principle and so on is not only from the Vedas themselves and from the Upanishads, but most particularly from Swami Vivekananda's teachings. So we'll start from principle. The essentials of Jnana Yoga are discrimination between the unreal and the real, in Sanskrit viveka, and the ability to let go of the unreal and insist on the truth of the real, in Sanskrit vairagya. Now, these sound simple, but they are emphatically not, because it's not called Mahamaya for nothing. The unreal appears to us in so many forms, in so many ways. We just have to think anything whatsoever that is of the senses and of the mind is ipso facto, is naturally duality, and therefore is part of the unreal. We really can't, in the beginning, conceive of what the real might be. But we're taught that the real is, and the unreal is only so in a lesser sense. As Vivekananda says, we do not move from error to truth. We move from lesser truth, Maya and its effects, to higher truth, Brahman, the reality. So I'll repeat what these essentials of Jnana Yoga are. First, discrimination between the unreal and the real, viveka, and the ability to let go the unreal and insist on the truth of the real, vairagya. Now, this letting go is something of the mind. Vasishta actually refers to it as annihilation of the mind. Adi Shankaracharya poetically put it this way: upon realization, my mind fell like a hailstone into the ocean of consciousness and therein dissolved. A somewhat softer way of saying it. But it means that we no longer rely on the mind. The mind is the mirror, the reflection. We do, as a jnani, we do not want the reflection, we want the reality, so we set aside the mirror. And that is a long and very challenging process. So listen carefully now to understand what a jnani yogi does, what a jnana yogi does. As an embodied being, you must know this. Exposed to the wide spectrum of universe's vibrations, each of our inner sense organs selects the frequencies of vibration appropriate to its particular function and transforms those vibrations into the names and forms you are familiar with. What you feel, hear, see, smell, and taste. That is the function of this action and experience suit, to transform the vibrations in which it is immersed into this apparent reality. These names and forms are then projected onto your awareness, your mind. Taken as a whole, this projection becomes your individual universe, the reality you know, understand, and feel more or less comfortable with. So that's what we're born into as human beings. That's what we're brought up to believe is the reality. What we see, feel, hear, touch, taste, that's the reality. And so we learn to be more or less comfortable with it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to function, would we? But, as Sri Ramakrishna says, the Jnana Yogi sees this whole process and its effects as nothing more than a dream. Compared to the reality from which the dream arises, it is unreal and it is regarded with a kind of indifference. Now we can compare this to our everyday experience, or practically everyday experience for most of us, of dreaming while we're asleep. We have a dream. When we wake up, we say, oh, no matter how powerful the dream may have been, we'll say, wow, that was amazing, or that was disturbing, or whatever it was. But we don't take it very seriously, do we? We're much better off if we don't. We may engage in something called, like the Jungians call dream analysis, and try to understand what our subconscious is telling us, but only in an analytical sense and not in a sense of it having any importance to us. So I'll read what this says. As Sri Ramakrishna says, the Jnana Yogi sees this whole process of transforming the vibrations of universe into taste, touch, sense, and so on, all our five senses, and then presenting them to the mind, that whole process and its effects, the life we live therefore, as nothing more than a dream, compared to the reality from which the dream arises. It is unreal and is regarded with a kind of indifference. This is why it's possible for the householder to practice Jnana Yoga if they wish, because they can do this viveka, discrimination, and vairagya, release, mentally. They can do it as a mental practice until they are very near the end of the practice, in which case something else happens, as Patanjali puts it in the Yoga Sutra. The first 6 limbs of his practices are something that you do. The 7th and 8th, samadhi and liberation, are something that happens to you. The same thing is true of the Jnani. This is described very clearly in Adi Shankaracharya's book, Viveka Chudamani, The Crest Jewel of Discrimination. So it is possible to regard the world with a kind of indifference, even as a householder. It's a very fine line to walk, because if you're involved with other people, it's very difficult not to step over the line and be indifferent to them and their concerns and their needs and their affection for you even. So it's a fine line to walk. So let's explore the practical effects, what are the practical effects of this attitude of indifference? What might it mean when confronted with major change in the Jnani's environment? We're going to take a look at 2 famous Jnanis. One of the most famous Jnanis of the 20th century is Ramana Maharshi. He was alive and teaching during the time of Mahatma Gandhi's efforts to free India from the British Raj. Ramana took no part in that. Let me say that again. Ramana took no part in that. Here's what he says about why he did not. This is from a biography of Ramana Maharshi. He is referred to in this biography as Bhagavan. So, quote, Bhagavan's perspective on the events of the world that were unfolding around him in the first half of the 20th century came from his abidance in the self and the consequent knowledge that everything that was occurring was unfolding according to a preordained script. He had no opinions on these scripted events and no desire to change their course. The classic statement on this topic comes from the note he penned for his mother when she begged him in 1898 to return to the family home in Madurai. Bhagavan wrote, "The ordainer, God, controls the fate of souls in accordance with their past deeds, their prarabdha karma. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try how hard you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to stop it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is for one to be silent. The best course, therefore, is for one to be silent." That's from the book Self-Realization. Again from the biography, quoting from the biography, "Ideas such as I should do this or this needs to be done were entirely absent in Bhagavan, since he had neither the desire to do anything nor the belief that events needed to be different from what they were. Bhagavan's position was elegantly summarized in a reply he gave to two devotees who, having had a disagreement, came to Bhagavan for a decision on which course of action they should follow. In response to the question, as we hold two different opinions, we are inquiring in order to find out what Bhagavan would like best. Bhagavan replied," this is the quote from Ramana Maharshi, what I like is to know who I am and to remain as I am with the knowledge that what is to happen will happen and what is not to happen will not happen. Is that not right? Do you now understand what Bhagavan likes best?" In other words, he did not address the question at all. He went directly to principle. I like to know who I am. What I like is to know who I am and to remain as I am, with the knowledge that what is to happen will happen and what is not to happen will not happen. Is that not right? Do you now understand what Bhagavan likes best? This is from Letters to Ramana Ashram, Letters from Ramana Ashram, a book. Again, quoting from the biography. His preference, Bhagavan's preference, if one can use such a word, was to abide in the self with the secure knowledge that all events in the world were unfolding according to a divine ordinance. Quoting again from Ramana Maharshi. No one can do anything that is opposed to the ordinance of the Supreme Lord, who possesses unlimited power and who can do anything. So remember, as I read this, what we're talking about is we're talking about the world of duality. We're talking about Jagat. We're talking about Ishvara. This is the Supreme Lord. We're not talking about Brahman. Brahman does not do. No one can do anything that is opposed to the ordinance of the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, who possesses unlimited power and who can do anything. Therefore, to end the illusory anxieties of the mind, which engender an evil discontent, the proper course is to remain under the spell of supreme consciousness, which arises from meditating on the divine feet with the mischief of the ego subdued. This is from the book Guru Vachaka Kovai. So we see that the Jnani, as exemplified by undeniably one of the greatest Jnanis of the 20th century, is to remain completely above the fray. Now, does that mean that Ramana Maharshi didn't do anything? No, though he himself was living in a cave and not doing anything, so to speak, people became his disciples and asked his permission to build an ashram. Now, a jnani, a realized soul of that nature, can foresee the future with complete accuracy, we're told. So Ramana Maharshi knew what would happen if he permitted this. And out of his compassion for humanity, he allowed them to build this ashram, in which he then lived for the rest of his life and taught. And people came from all over the world. There are many biographies and many books about Ramana Maharshi and his teachings and his way of life and so on. It's utterly charming. His simplicity is overwhelming. So it isn't that he didn't do anything. He allowed his disciples to create an ashram in which he would live and receive people who came for instruction. He didn't make disciples. He didn't initiate anyone. One of the lovely things that he did do was give his cow that he loved dearly. He gave that cow liberation. That's one of the few actions you can say he actually did. So that's the summary of how Ramana Maharshi behaved during a time of great change and transformation in India while he was alive. We have the example of another great jnani who lived here in the United States during the 19th century, the poet Walt Whitman. Swami Vivekananda said of Whitman, and this is a direct quote, "He is the American sannyasin." The poet Walt Whitman. Swami Vivekananda said of Whitman, "He is the American sannyasin." It is notable that Whitman, a great jnani, though it is notable that Whitman, though taking no part in the Civil War itself, which happened in the middle of the 19th century here in the United States, it is notable that Whitman, though taking no part in the Civil War itself, served the Union Army as a nurse and companion to wounded soldiers. It was remarked at the time that with equal love and care, he served and spent time reading to both Union and Confederate soldiers. Again, a jnani who remains embodied has great compassion for humanity. And this is one of the ways that practically the only way, really, that other than teaching a few, again, he did not make disciples, he did not initiate anyone, Some people came to him where he lived, and he would give them instruction, though he preferred to particularly in the latter part of his life, to live by himself, and until he had a stroke and needed someone to care for him. It was remarked at the time that Whitman, with equal love and care, served and spent time reading to both Union and Confederate soldiers. This is from Whitman's Song of Myself. I cannot recommend highly enough to any of you who want to know about the way a Jnana yogi became that, to read at least Whitman's From Leaves of Grass, his book Leaves of Grass, read his poem Song of Myself. This is a portion of that poem, Song of Myself. Trippers and askers surround me. People I meet, the effect upon me of my early life, or the ward and city I live in, or the nation, the latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors old and new, my dinner, dress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man or woman I love, the sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill-doing, or loss, or lack of money, or depression, or depressions, or exaltations, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, the fear of doubtful news, the fever, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events. These come to me days and nights and go from me again, but they are not the me myself. Apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am, stands amused, complacent, compassionating, idle, unitary, looks down, is erect, or bends an arm on an impalpable, certain rest, looking with side-curved head, curious about what will come next, both in and out of the game, and watching and wondering at it. Backward I see in my own days where I sweated through fog with linguists and contenders. I have no mockings or arguments. I witness and wait. So this is the testimony of a saint, Walt Whitman, about what it means to be a Jnani and release all those things that he talked about, all that list. This will all be posted on the website if you want to go and have a look at it. These notes will be posted on the website along with the talk. So the ideal Jnani may apparently do very little in response to what is occurring around us. If there is some compassionate way in which they may serve, as Ramana Maharshi allowed an ashram to be built so people could come and receive instruction for him, or as Whitman served as a nurse and companion. When I say companion, he read to them from the books that they wanted read from the Bible. He would read the letters from their loved ones, and he would write when they were not able to write. He would write the letter for them and make sure it was posted. And you can read all about this. It'll bring you to tears. How much he did, how hard he worked. But he was indifferent to the war itself. It was only to the suffering of the soldiers that he responded. And equally to the Union and Confederate soldiers. So that's the end of my notes. And now comes the part that we all know is the most important, where you have something to say, a question to ask, a comment to make, something to share with the rest of us about what you've heard. We've got plenty of time. It's 11:45. So please ask, comment, share with us. This is studying the art of spirituality together.
Brother Shankara, this is Hyma. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, of course I can.
I have a wonderful quote from Walt Whitman. It says, the more one was shivered in the cold, the better one can appreciate the warmth of the sun. The more troubles one has experienced in the world, the better one can understand the true value of life. Walt Whitman.
Beautiful.
Excellent quote.
Beautiful. Read that again, please, Hyma.
Yes. Yes, it is. I love Walt Whitman. I have read several articles about him. The more one was shivered in the cold, the better one can appreciate the warmth of the sun. The more troubles one has experienced in the world, the better one can understand the true value of life. Walt Whitman.
Yes, beautiful. He's a great poet.
Excellent. Thank you so much for giving me the chance.
Thank you, Hyma. That was beautiful. Anything else from anyone?
Hello, Brother Shankara. This is Vijay.
Yes, Vijay.
I have a lot of admiration for Ramana Maharshi ji.
Mm-hmm.
And I need some clarification on what you spoke a while ago about him, that he believed that everything is ordained and therefore he would not take an active part or any part in what was going on regarding the fight for freedom or struggle for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it seems to me that, just as Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, that for us we have to act. So I believe also that after I act, what happens, the result, that is ordained. But the action is my duty. So if I simply say before I act that whatever is happening is ordained and not act, then I believe that I'm missing something within me. Please help me.
Vijay, one could say that what you expressed is very accurate, but it's not the attitude of a jnani. It's the attitude of a karmi. It's the attitude of a karma yogi or a bhakta. As Sri Krishna points out in chapter 12 of the Gita, it is the bhakta who acts that has the greater understanding of yoga. But it is the jnani who has the greater understanding of wisdom. So we we appreciate what Ramana Maharshi says from the point of view of wisdom. From another perspective entirely, a Catholic saint, Saint John of the Cross, one of the poems in Love Poems of God is called Nursery Rhyme. And the last lines of the poem are, "Don't speak to me of free will. It is nothing but a compassionate nursery rhyme that may be helpful if you are infirm." So this is the Jnani again speaking. They see from above the fact that God is doing everything without exception. Now, if we look carefully and read carefully, the Chandi, the 4 hymns of the Chandi, we find this exact same message. Mother is doing everything without exception. So if we are prompted to do something, as Krishna prompts Arjuna, because it is his swadharma, it is his destiny as a kshatriya, as a warrior to fight a righteous war, but he tells him the result is foreordained. He says it right in chapter 3. You just think you're doing this. So we have to act according to the promptings of our heart. So you are exactly right, Vijay, in following the promptings of your heart to act, to write, to do as you do. But these are not the wisdom of a jnani. These are the yoga of a bhakta or a karmi. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Uma, speak up, please.
Yes, okay. I understand Ramana Maharshi's approach of total silence and focusing on who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in the same time, in this real sense of time, he was a contemporary of Mahatma Gandhi,
Yes.
who was deeply involved. Actually, he was a leader of independence movement, which was going full swing at that time.
Yes.
Both were Samakalin. In this sense, Samakalin means contemporary. However, their approaches were different. Gandhi was no less a Jnani. However, he preferred to oppose satyagraha, means you oppose the injustice and untruth by actual participation, unlike Ramana Maharshi. Now we are not trying to say who is better or who is right or who is wrong. So it will boil down to, I think, your own prompting of your own heart and your particular gunas. What kind of person you are. Person not in the sense of so and so passing judgment, but your chief mentality, your chief approach to life. If it is like Gandhi, who said, and I quote, "Non-cooperation with evil is a sacred duty." So we cannot say what happens will happen because we are all not Ramana Maharshis. we are ordinary citizens, barring a few. But whatever the time requires us, we should do, act if we can, with discrimination, discretion, but we cannot avoid our part, our responsibility in this situation. For example, right now, this disease has no end in sight right now. So our first responsibility is to go inward and strengthen our inner resilience by spiritual method or spiritual practice. But at the same time, if we are truly Jnani, we may do whatever we can by serving or by writing, by spreading the correct approach, whatever is within your ability. So my point is that Jnani does not exempt oneself from participation. But at the same time, if you are so advanced like Swami Vivekananda or Raman Maharshi, then whatever you do to search yourself and your spiritual well-being and spiritual focus is equally powerful if you are that kind of selfless and totally God-realized person.
Thank you, Uma. Yes.
That's
You're
my approach.
So it is absolutely best that we not try to judge who is right,
Right.
Ramana Maharshi or Mahatma Gandhi or anyone else.
Yes.
These were brought forward, these examples of ideal jnanis.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
So we have to. This is absolutely foundational. We must listen to the promptings of our own heart.
Yes.
We must understand, you're absolutely right. We must understand what it is that we are to do. Because we have no idea what the script is. We have no idea what the whole script is. We only know what our part is. If we're very sincere and not the least hypocritical about what it is we are and what we must do. So Vivekananda said, I am all jnana on the outside and all bhakti on the inside. So though he did not have to stay with us after June 1895, the key had been returned to him. He could leave at any time, though he could have left after his Nirvikalpa Samadhi realization at Thousand Island Park in June of 1895. Though Vivekananda could have left, he stayed another 7 years. And it is during those 7 years that those 9 volumes, most of those 9 volumes that are left to us, were created. So yes, a jnani may act. And it's not for us to judge who's who and what's right.
Brother Shankara.
Yes, please.
This is Keith. I had a question.
Yes, Keith.
I understand. So with a Jnani, are they still dealing in dualism? Are they still dealing with Ishvara? Because it seems like they've gone beyond and they are in like dwelling with Brahman.
They become Brahman. It is like Uddalaka said, thou art that. We all, as long as we're embodied, are living in the universe that we share with Ishvara, Ishwari, the dualistic aspect of the divine presence. But the realized soul, a Ramana Maharshi or a Walt Whitman, dwells beyond that. It says that the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. And so this is the perspective from which they speak and see.
Brother
Brother
Shankara.
Shankara?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
you go ahead. Vijay, you go ahead. I'll ask my question next.
No. Brother Shankara?
Yes.
Just clarification, please. Uma said it very beautifully, drawing the position both of Ramana Maharishi Ji as well as Gandhi Ji.
Mhm.
And Gandhi Ji was being more practical. He was a bhakta, he was a jnani too in my eyes. And he was very practical too. That if he had not acted, if he had not taken the stand he took against the British were not going to leave that easily. So if I see a snake in front of me, approaching me, or a lion approaching me, I have to do something, even if I'm a jnani. So for me to live in the world, spirituality has its place, and at the same time, I have to draw a balance between secular world, the way it is operating. In reality, there is no secular world. The spiritual world and secular world within me are both the same. But outside, because everybody else is not thinking the same way as I'm thinking, I have to operate in a certain way so as not to give someone a chance to harm me. Please throw some light on that.
Well, you've said it very well. There's nothing to add, Vijay. From your sincere perspective, this is how it is. And so you must behave from that perspective and continue your spiritual practices. As the ego, as Ramana Maharshi put it, is subdued, we no longer see things in the way that you described. This is the understanding as given to us by the saints, including Sri Ramakrishna. So each of us is, as you said, there is no line of demarcation between what we call the secular and the spiritual. There is no line of demarcation, it's a spectrum. And so wherever we are on the spectrum, we have to be completely sincere and honest about it and behave accordingly and continue our spiritual practices. Thank you for sharing that, Vijay.
Thank you.
Shankar?
Yes, let's let Rita have a word. She was kind enough to defer to Vijay, so let her have a word, and then you, Dr. Munch.
Thank you. In a letter written by Swami Swahananda, he explains about the terms karma yoga and service and jnana seem to be morphing. And so I wanted a clarification. Is self-realization the same as being a jnani? Because he says the best service one can give the guru is to realize God, have the vision of the Ishta, or to attain Brahma Jnana, knowledge of Brahman. The second best service would be to try to achieve that realization. Another would be to convey Sri Ramakrishna's message to others. Once Swami Yatishwarananda, later vice president of Ramakrishna order, wanted to perform sadhana, spiritual disciplines in solitude. Swami Brahmananda, his guru, asked, "How much capacity do you have to do this? We have already done this for you. Go and preach the message of Swami Vivekananda, door to door. And to lessen the ego, don't think you are preaching, but rather that you are merely conveying the teachings. So I'm trying to figure out, is this part of being a jnani or a karma yogi?
Very hard to parse, isn't it, Rita? The idea, what did the Swami say at the very beginning? The highest service that you can offer is self-realization. This is exactly what Ramana Maharshi said also. The greatest service you can perform for the world is to come to know who you truly are, to know the I am. So that's the highest service. That is jnana. That is wisdom. That's why Krishna says the bhakta is the highest, has the highest knowledge of yoga. The jnani has the highest knowledge of wisdom. Their yoga and wisdom are not precisely the same thing. We can be united in spirit with the divine. And that's a different kind of samadhi than nirvikalpa samadhi, the samadhi of the jnani. It's only from that nirvikalpa perspective that one can speak as Ramana Maharshi spoke, or for that matter, as Whitman spoke. So, as Sri Ramakrishna said, all of these seeming contradictions and paradoxes are resolved when you come into the neighborhood of God. And by that he meant in the dualistic sense. He didn't mean nirvikalpa. He meant savikalpa. When one nears God, one sees that all these things are resolved in her or him. So it's Swami Swahananda was doing the very best he could to explain in that letter, and I'm glad you read it. It was beautiful. But we will only understand most of what he says as we deepen our spiritual practice. Sorry, I can't be more definite than that. Is that good?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. It was very, very much more, it provided me with clarity. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Mudge, are you still there? Dr. Majmudar? He was there.
The mic has to be turned on. He's Dr. Maj is
Can you hear? Can you hear?
Yeah, now I
please.
can hear you.
Yeah, now you can hear me. Okay, Brother Shankara, just in the way that no two human faces are alike.
Yes.
Similarly, no two thoughts are going to be alike in the same head. And therefore, diversity of different thinking is the very beauty of this Mayavi world.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? But we cannot say even the compartments of Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, it has its limits. And if you do not understand the limits, then basically what we will do is to follow a pre-grooved path and not make a dent in the way you want to make it a dent. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 or 4 characters and we do not think it that way. But there is Krishna who supports the war without fighting the war.
Mm-hmm.
Arjuna who does not want to fight because he is confused. But then there is Sanjay.
Mm-hmm.
Sanjay is like what Whitman? Wait and witness.
Mm-hmm.
It narrates everything, he observes everything, does not participate in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm wondering how much message did he get from Bhagavad Gita, which was in the very center of Bhagavad Gita, in the center of Mahabharata.
Mm-hmm.
He just narrated, just exactly like the Buddha story by Hermann Hesse, that the entire thing is perceived, appreciated, and watched by a boatman, Vasudeva. And that was a wonderful vision of Hermann Hesse, the German man.
Yes, beautiful book, Siddhartha.
Yes, beautiful book. So all this goes to show that we can think differently. The way we have thought, somebody has thought before for sure, but not entirely that way. And therefore you say, for example, Ramana Maharshi had no disciples, or Walt Whitman had no disciples, but you still quoted both of them. And today the principal portion of what you said came from both of them. So whether you call them a disciple or not, you are a part of the philosophy that they advanced. And who you are, to me, that is the part Ramana Maharshi appeals to me the most. First, you have to find out who you are, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And that who am I cannot be understood by reading, listening, but perhaps meditation can help you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
And
meditation
you are
will
so
be
right. You
yes,
are so
very unscrupulous. Meditation will give you unscrupulous knowledge about yourself.
Yes.
I love the use of that word, unscrupulous. Yes, and I love where you started. Each of us is absolutely unique. We are somehow a facet of the illimitably huge jewel that is the divine presence. Each of us is that. And so, yes, this is why it's said, the four graces are: first, human birth; second, the desire for liberation or salvation, however you care to. The third is a qualified teacher, and the fourth is the grace of your own mind. You said we follow a grooved path. We follow a grooved path until we no longer need it. And when we've achieved the results of that grooved path that is given to us by our teachers, and then whether it be an individual guru or a book like the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra or Viveka Chudamani by Adi Shankaracharya, however we discover that grooved path, each of the four ways of approaching this, which are suited to a general kind of personality and a temperament, the four yogas as they're called. You know, each has its workbook. And so you work the workbook until you no longer need it. The great breakthroughs are not made by people who are repeating other people's experiments. No, they go on, they find through concentration, you mentioned meditation, through the concentration that meditation provides, they somehow make a breakthrough on their own. And so we have these beautiful insights of a Rabindranath Tagore or a Walt Whitman or a Bob Dylan. So, and one of the characteristics of each of those individuals, or Saint Teresa of Avila, or Saint Catherine of Siena, or Rabia, or Mirabai, so that we don't mention only men. Each of these, one of their determining characteristics, one of their defining characteristics, I mean, is that they are self-determined. They do not follow. They have gone beyond the grooved path. And that is the aspiration for each of us. And when we get to that point where we're going beyond the grooved path, it's a little spooky, and we skin our knees and we bloody our nose, and we step off the razor's edge and find out it's not very far to the ground after all. So, thank you, Dr. Mudge. That was very eloquent. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I was kind of a little hesitant whether I should speak up or not, but I wanted to first of all say how important it is to belong to a congregation like this, and one that is so open in terms of not banging the gravel that you should do this, you should do that, and just lay out the wisdom and follow, however your mind and heart evolves. And again, I was reluctant, but I hope the congregation will forgive me for getting a little personal, that I recently tested positive for COVID, but thankfully I'm fine. I did not have symptoms and I'm over the whole isolation period. But during that time, there were so many thoughts, and frankly, it was very hard for me to meditate. No matter what you faced in life or whatever, but when something hits like this, the anxiety does kick in, and people say, "Oh, don't be anxious," but there's so much unknown.
Isn't that a preposterous thing for people to say? Don't be anxious.
Right.
First after you.
Yeah. And every day, well-meaning people, but such conflicting recommendations, even from physicians and reputable websites, and adding to the confusion. But what really, I think, helped me was practical application. So while I could not concentrate on my meditation, I did do my japa just mechanically, and maybe became more of a bhakta in this place, in this phase, and then reaching out to Brother Shankara and people. And then it was hard to accept, being more of an independent-minded person, to accept help from others, and allowing myself to be vulnerable, but then not seeing as a human giving help to human, but divine giving help to divine, helped me to be comfortable in that reaching out. So all facets of the four paths, I think, become applicable in different ways at different times. I don't know if what I said made any sense, but I just wanted to share my personal experience during this time.
Well, Swayam, thank you very much for being open with us. This is what it means to study the art of spirituality together, to hear what one experiences when one is in distress. As Swami Prabhavananda said, as long as you are conscious, you can make japam. You may not be able to meditate, but you can make japam. And this is the prescription, if we remember, by Holy Mother. Chant the name of the Lord, it will make your heart as pure as a star. She doesn't say meditate. She doesn't say, sit for deep meditation. She simply says, repeat the name of the Lord, and it will make your heart as pure as a star. So what you did is exactly right. And of course, when something happens to us, I've been through something similar myself during these last months when I was ill because of the carbon monoxide poisoning and everything. So many different prescriptions. And, thank God I didn't have to listen to most of them. I just listened to the allopaths. And, when anything seemed to be reasonable, I would try to incorporate it. But it's been interesting to see what happens as we struggle along. This is why I said what I said at the beginning of this talk. We have all these experts commenting on this great upheaval and transformation, scientists and medical people and politicians and so on, all with their own ideas and prescriptions, and based on very scant knowledge of what's actually going on. So we just have to be as sincere as you just were, Swayam, with ourselves, and if we can, with our fellow congregation members, because then the love pours out for us. The love pours out. And as Swami Prabhupada would triple underline, prayer works. He would say, do you think you are not connected? So when we love others, when we pray for others, it has a tangible effect, even though we may not know it in the moment. Thank you, Swayam, for everything you said.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. And I didn't put my video on because I'm operating this laptop that I'm not comfortable with, and somehow my background is not coming clear. But thanks to everyone for listening and support.
Well, you know that there's so much love from the people who are here with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Anything else from anyone?
Shankaraji.
Yes.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Is this Balakrishna? Yes, Bala.
Yes, sir. I just want, because it is such an enlightening lecture, but we got the both aspects of it, you know, between Ramana Maharshi and Walt Whitman, either Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga, to follow your, things. And at the same time, Ramakrishna one time said, I forgot the name of one of the gentlemen who is a rich gentleman. He was planning to build all the hospitals and all those. And Ramakrishna told him, do you think God needs all your help?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Vivekananda said, do the karma yoga, do everything, whatever you can, like as a jiva, as a Shiva.
Right.
So have the two aspects. It all depends upon at what stage we are and what we can do as a householder, because, they both are jnanis and at the same time they are not householder. I don't know about Walt Whitman, but at least,
No, that's why Vivekananda said of him that he was a sannyasin. He did not live as a householder. And toward the end of his life,
why,
of course, he had a little home. But
so we got the both aspects of it. So it is as a householder, we have to decide at what stage we are, what we can do.
yes, you're absolutely right. This is what I was pointing at earlier when I said we have to be utterly sincere with ourselves. We must not be the least bit hypocritical. We must say, this is who I am, and this is what I can do, and then do it. The worst thing to do is sit on your hands in indecision. That's what Buddha was pointing to when he said, that if there is a sin, it is laziness. What is laziness? Laziness is a much misunderstood word. It is lack of motivation. Somehow or another, we don't find motivation. So we sit on our hands, we do nothing. That's the worst thing that we can do. Better to do something even if it's wrong and we skin our knees or bloody our nose than to do nothing. As Vivekananda said, we learn by making mistakes. We fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times. So you're so right, Balakrishna. We must do as according to our understanding and our ability. We must do.
Yeah, the other interesting point I remember now, for Gandhiji, his teacher, one of the questions Gandhiji question
Right, Chandra.
is, when you face a snake, what would you do? Either you want to kill it or you want to run away. But he said, you know, if you are a real Aryan and if you have that knowledge, you let it bite if it wants to bite. So that is, I don't know how many of us can reach to that state, you know, but that is a very interesting, you know, answer for us to ponder on.
Yes. Well, it perfectly comports with what Ramana Maharshi said. But, you know, Ramana Maharshi, we say Ramana Maharshi didn't do anything. Well, yes, he did.
Yes.
His predilection was remain in the cave. His disciples said, no, we need to build a little place for you so that people can come and see you and where tigers won't come and trouble you at night and so on and so forth. And so Ramana Maharshi allowed them to do that. He didn't need to do that. He didn't want that. He didn't want anything. So as was pointed out, we do what we can according to, I think Vijay was heading in that direction. According to our understanding, we act. But remember I said in the beginning of this talk, this is not meant as personal instruction today. This is simply a review, a thought experiment on what would an ideal jnani do in the present situation. So we looked at two ideal jnanis and we found their answers. And we have the principles. What are the principles? Viveka and Vairagya, discrimination and release of the unreal. And that is quite a process. As Sri Krishna points out in chapter 12, it is very difficult for the embodied. And Sri Ramakrishna underlined that also. If you want to know what he has to say in its detail, get a copy of take your copy of the gospel and start reading at page 132 until the end of that chapter. Very, very instructive about each of the yogas, their place in Sri Ramakrishna's vision of their place in our current modern life. Because he wasn't just speaking to those people of Keshab Sen's group. He was speaking to all of us. That's why these things are in the gospel.
Shankaraji, even though it is not a personal instructions, but this has deep significance, and we have to ponder on these things. What is our nature? What we see, for example, Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, all the characters know who is. They know who he is. So I wish I have a Krishna to my side all the time to understand what is going to happen. But we don't have any of that thing like that. So we have to think about these things deeply and see what is our nature, what we can do, what we should not do.
Absolutely. That's why I characterize this as a thought experiment for us, Balakrishna. It's not meant as personal instruction. It's meant as a thought experiment for you to take it in and say, okay, what does this mean to me? Not that I should do this or shouldn't do that. No, this is a thought experiment and what an ideal jnani might do and be in the current situation. Most of us are not jnanis. That's absolutely yes. The case. I mean, Adi Shankaracharya is absolutely clear about that in Viveka Chudamani. Very few have the qualifications to truly walk the jnana path. And that's why Adi Shankaracharya wrote Bhaja Govindam.
That's true.
Could I say something?
Yes, please, Robert.
I found the talk today very interesting.
Good.
It covered a lot of areas that I've been giving a lot of thought to lately.
Good.
And you gave me some answers.
Well, I'm very glad, Robert. Thank you. Thank you. That nothing could be more hoped for.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, dear.
that I know it is coming to an end. 2 or 3 very quick points I wanted to say. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, the 4th character is to be guarded against, and that is Dhritarashtra.
Mm-hmm.
He participates, but he does not fight, he does not think, he just emotionally suffers through the aftermath of war and nothing more than that. And if we are not on our guard, we may exactly end up like Dhritarashtra.
Yes.
Suffering without producing anything.
Yes.
In that context, there is a Sanskrit saying which came to my mind, which is very provocative. It says, Anvishyami khalu nirmishyami vapantanam. I'll find out what is my right way, and if I don't find my right way, I will create the way which is right for me. That is our Vedanta.
That's what I
Very
mean.
individualistic.
That's what I mean by one of the most important defining characteristics of the spiritual aspirant is self-determination.
Mhm.
You are not guided by these, as you put them, these grooved tracks. Yes, you follow them. It's just like learning to do anything else. If you want to become an expert tennis player, you don't try to learn it on your own. You go to a teacher. And the teacher says, no, that's the wrong place to put your foot. No, that's not the way to hold your hand. That's not the way to hold the racket. Do this, do that, do the other. Until you don't need them anymore. And then you become a Roger Federer who does absolutely breakthrough things no one ever heard of doing the things that he did. You know, the exemplary are our guides. We can always hold, as Swami Prabhupada used to say, always hold and never compromise the ideal.
Yes.
So thank you, Dr. Mudge. Anything else from anyone? All right. Well, this is
Just
so...
a quick thing, Brother Shankar.
Yes, please.
You said a few things about the expert and medical experts.
Yes.
And therefore, I would say we define an expert in medicine who knows more and more about less and less until he knows everything about nothing.
Ah, yes. Oh, me. Well, we rely on what we can rely on, and we use our best judgment for everything else.
That's quite true.
And we just, as somebody said earlier, you look to your heart. You look to your heart. So this is always so inspiring to hear from you all, to hear what you have to say and what you have to share. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll close with this. Dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. Flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all joyous and suffering beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. So until next time would be Tuesday. We'll be following along in the book by Swami Chaitananda about Holy Mother. And then Wednesday, and then the following Saturday will be, in any case, whatever is the first day of August, that's when everything except the Monday class, the Monday reading group, it's not really a class, reading and discussion group on love poems from God starts.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
I just have one question.
Yes, dear.
From next week, do we still need the passwords for the links, or
Yes.
is it embedded in the?
I think that they're embedded. I think the passwords are embedded in the links.
Because yesterday I could not get into the the class.
Bah.
I could not find the password.
Brother Shankar, will you be presiding Monday class?
The Monday class is peer led, dear.
Okay.
I won't be presiding or leading it. No, I will be participating most times.
Okay.
Because I love that book so, but definitely not leading it. It deserves to be peer led. Everyone read a particular poem that they want to share with others from that book, and you don't need to have the book. You can just sit in and listen to others read the poems that they find of such great interest and that move them so, and then discuss them. So if you want to buy the book, it's available online as a Kindle edition very inexpensively, and as a paperback very reasonably. Love Poems from God, Love Poems from God by Daniel Ladinsky, Ladinsky.
Are you reading the Nisargadatta's book, or are you participating in it?
No, I'm not participating in the Nisargadatta group, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't want to step on Ryan's toes,
Okay. Yes.
She's the one who initiated
Who
it.
is leading it? Okay.
Yeah, she's doing well too, I understand. So,
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. Oh, in Mother's loving and protective embrace.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye all.
Bye.